Picture a sinking ship, not a ticking bomb. That's what $2 trillion of new US debt really is. Forget the Hollywood explosion. The real danger is a slow, silent flood, one that seeps into your wallet while everyone's looking for fireworks. Here's the myth. Massive US debt will spark a sudden crash like 2008. But that's not how this threat actually works. And the real risk? Most people never even see it coming. So why is the $2 trillion debt surge more like slow drowning than a sudden bang? Let's rip the bandage off. The US is on track to add over $2 trillion in debt every single year. That's not a one-time emergency, it's a new normal. But here's the twist. The world isn't panicking. Not yet. Instead, the risk creeps in quietly. It's death by 1,000 leaks. And unless you understand these leaks, your money is at risk, without a single headline to warn you. Let's start with the world's so-called safest asset, US government bonds. Pension funds, banks, and even your retirement account probably own some. These bonds are supposed to be rock solid. But what happens when the US keeps issuing hundreds of billions in new debt, month after month? Simple. The price of safety drops. Bond values fall. Yields rise to tempt buyers. Last year, US government bonds lost more value than at any time since the Civil War. Imagine, the thing your grandparents called risk-free is now quietly draining portfolios worldwide. But the weird part is, most savers don't notice. At least, not directly. Instead, losses hide in the background. Your 401k or pension just underperforms for a few years. Now flip that around. If you're a government, rising interest rates are a nightmare. For every $1 trillion in new debt, the US owes roughly $50 billion more in interest every year. That's just for starters. The total US interest bill is now over $1 trillion a year, more than the military, Medicare, or Social Security costs. And here's the silent killer. Every dollar spent on interest is a dollar not spent on services, infrastructure, or let's be honest, preventing future crises. So what's the real impact on you? It's not a sudden collapse. It's the slow erosion of what your money can actually buy. Most people worry about inflation. But the sneakiest inflation is the kind nobody calls inflation, like when your taxes go up or your benefits quietly shrink. And if you're saving for retirement, here's the kicker. The more debt the US issues, the harder it is for your nest egg to keep up. Think about it. If bonds and stocks both slump because of rising debt and rates, where do you hide? That's why the smart money isn't running for the exits. But the average saver, most are still asleep, drifting along with the current. And here's the catch nobody talks about. The system is designed to keep you calm until it's too late to act. You'll never get a warning siren, just higher costs, lower returns, and a creeping sense that your money doesn't stretch as far as it used to. Now let's zoom out. Why does the US keep borrowing at this scale, even with all these risks? Simple. It's politically painless. Borrowing means politicians can promise more without raising taxes or cutting benefits. But every painless promise is just pushing pain onto the future. And here's where the slow-motion crisis gets dangerous. As debt grows, the US becomes more dependent on the kindness of strangers, foreign buyers. If those buyers ever demand higher interest or dump US debt, rates spike, and the cost of everything, from your mortgage to your car loan, jumps overnight. So far, that hasn't happened, but the risk grows every year. Most people expect a dramatic Lehman moment, a sudden, obvious crash. But history says most debt crises rot quietly, then snap when confidence is lost. The real danger isn't an explosion. It's financial suffocation. And if you're wondering, why haven't I felt it yet? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Most of the pain is delayed. Like carbon monoxide, it builds up invisibly until one day you just wake up poorer. Take Japan. Decades of sky-high debt, no crash, but a generation lost to stagnation and falling living standards. Or Britain in the 1970s, a nation once rich, quietly hollowed out by debt and inflation until the pound collapsed. The US isn't immune. The only thing holding the system together is confidence, and that's a fragile thing. So what should you actually do if you're not a billionaire or a bond trader? First, don't fall for the exploding debt bomb headlines. If the end comes, it won't look like 2008. it'll feel like slow suffocation. Second, know what you own. If you rely on government bonds for safety, remember, they can lose value and they're not immune to inflation. Diversify. Genuinely. That means not just stocks and bonds, but also savings, real assets, maybe even skills that can't be devalued by inflation. Third, pay ruthless attention to risk. If something seems too safe, ask who's truly taking the risk. Sometimes it's you. And remember, the most dangerous part isn't what you see on the news. It's what happens quietly, for years in the background. Now, let's tie it all together. The $2 trillion bomb won't explode overnight, but it will keep pulling you underwater, one rising bill at a time. If you want to survive, stop waiting for the explosion. Start building a life raft before the water hits your chin. And here's the kicker. The system is betting most people will just keep swimming until it's too late to reach shore. But you're not most people. Now you see the real risk, so you get to decide. Will you quietly drown or quietly prepare? Want to know how to actually build that financial life raft? Our next video shows the 3 smartest moves to survive a slow-motion crisis without panic, hype, or wishful thinking. But let's dig deeper, because there are hidden cracks even experts miss. Here's one. The debt binge quietly changes who owns America. When the US borrows, someone has to lend. Increasingly, those lenders aren't just retirees and pension funds. They're sovereign wealth funds from China, Japan, and oil-rich states. In 2001, foreigners held about 30% of US Treasury debt. Now, it's closer to 40%. That sounds boring until you realize it means a growing chunk of government leverage sits offshore. What's the risk? Imagine a future where geopolitical tensions flare. Suddenly, those foreign creditors can squeeze, quietly or suddenly, and the US dollar gets caught in the crossfire. It's not just a financial lever. It's a new kind of soft power, and it can be pulled without warning. There's another leak. The debt addiction distorts prices everywhere, not just in bonds. Cheap borrowing props up everything from housing bubbles to zombie companies, firms that should have failed years ago but survive on endless credit. In 2023, nearly 20% of US public companies couldn't even cover interest payments with their earnings. That's not capitalism, it's economic limbo. Why does that matter? These walking dead firms crowd out healthier businesses and freeze innovation, slowing growth for everyone. Meanwhile, easy credit keeps home prices sky high. Your kid's first house? The sticker shock is real, and debt is a silent partner in every mortgage. But here's the twist. When rates finally rise, the shock hits hardest at the margins: first-time buyers, small businesses, and local governments. So while Wall Street has hedges and exit plans, Main Street gets hit with the bill. And there's one more hidden cost: the opportunity lost. When trillions flow to interest, less goes to science, schools, or fixing those potholes you swerve around every morning. Over decades, that's not a rounding error. It's a lost future. But here's an even stranger twist. The more debt America issues, the more the world depends on the US dollar. This is called the exorbitant privilege. The US can borrow in its own currency, and the world needs dollars to trade oil, buy goods, and settle debts. It's a financial superpower until it isn't. If that confidence wobbles, the dollar falls. Suddenly, imports cost more, inflation surges, and the world's safe asset looks a lot less safe. The irony? The very thing that lets the US borrow so cheaply could turn into a trap if foreign faith slips away. So the slow leak isn't just about your wallet. It's about the rules of the whole global game. And now, the most counterintuitive truth. Sometimes the system punishes caution. When interest rates stay ultra low for years, savers get squeezed while borrowers feast. It's like rewarding the reckless and taxing the careful. Retirees counting on safe returns, they're forced to take bigger risks just to keep up. Meanwhile, corporations binge on debt to buy back their own stock, pumping share prices but leaving bigger cracks underneath. And here's the kicker. When the tide finally turns, those cracks turn into sinkholes. That's why understanding this slow-motion crisis isn't just doom-scrolling. It's the only way to avoid being the last to know.